Hello, it's Isaiah from the Inner Health Foundation. I'm joined today by my friend Miriam Elise,
Hello.
who is an incredible acupuncturist and body worker and embodiment coach for women to help them experience and get in touch with the pleasure in their body and using pleasure as a healing force and as a mobilizing force in their lives. And I wanted to bring her on today to talk about the importance of pleasure in the healing process and get her perspective and takes on and how important it is and how she goes about teaching and encouraging people to utilize pleasure and to make that a central focus of their healing process. So thank you for coming. So what do you do in your practice?
So I help women. I do something called sensual embodiment. So I help women come into their sensual embodiment and feeling of connection to their bodies.
Mhm.
And I use acupuncture and body work to help this process and teach women tools and techniques to help feel more alive in their bodies and more essentially expressed. And what that usually means for women is more feminine, more graceful, more fluid, you know, and also just working with the energy of pleasure, using pleasure as medicine, is a really amazing thing because it has such potent healing capacity. Pleasure has such potent healing capacity that you can actually use it to help heal your body, and people don't recognize that enough.
Yeah.
They see pleasure as being something frivolous. They see it as being something
Like a luxury.
of secondary importance, exactly, luxury.
Yeah, I remember years ago with body work, I do a lot of body work as well for 20 years now, and people would often say, well, it's a luxury, so they would keep themselves back. Well, I don't really deserve this or something. But in reality, when they actually receive the body work, they're like, this is a complete necessity. I need this connection. It's not even a question of whether I can afford it. Like, I have to find a way to get this movement of energy and this feeling of pleasure.
Yeah, well, once you know how good it is to feel good,
Yeah.
once you know how good you can feel, that becomes your normal, and you want to be that way all the time, and you start to live life from that perspective, and it lifts up everything else that you do because you're coming to it from this place of being really vibrant and alive and feeling full, feeling whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of healing in general, I talk about with people often, is not a pleasurable process. Often, it's like because we're encountering all of our pain and our discomfort and our toxicity and stagnation and blind spots. All that stuff has to come up and out as we go into a healing process. So how do we, for example, all that stuff needs to come out, but at the same time, pleasure is the partner, right? Do you think you can make pleasure just as real for you in that moment as the toxicity and the pain and everything else that you need to come to terms with,
Yeah, well, that's a good point too, because a lot of that deep healing work is painful. When you detox, you experience the detox reaction oftentimes. It's everything that's been locked up in there gets freed and released, and you have to face all these toxins that you've been basically locking up in your tissues, in your cells. And like we were talking about earlier, choosing to focus on your pain versus choosing to focus on what you do want, choosing to focus on how you do want to feel. And you can experience pain. You can be going through deeply medicinal, so to speak, transformation, really potent transformation, and have a
discomfort.
You can be experiencing discomfort through your healing process, and still giving yourself a certain amount of pleasure, so that pleasure becomes how you're nourishing yourself. And it's like you're giving back to yourself, you're feeding yourself. It's about self-love. It's about giving yourself that comfort and kind of like encouraging yourself to want to continue, and want to embody this new self.
Yeah, I mean, I've been spending a long time. Basically, my job is to help people find good pain, and to help them find pain and get it out of the body. And the pain can be pleasurable when you start to recognize that it's pain leaving your body, and all the benefits and the amount of freedom you're going to get from having that gone. You can start to take pleasure in that sensation because you know what it represents. You know, it's not something you need to hide from or run from or continue to suppress or deny. It's something we need to get in touch with and feel and make friends with if we want to, you know, resolve the underlying issue.
Yeah, and making friends with it, so to speak, finding pleasure in your pain is actually saying yes to it. So when you say yes to it, if you're experiencing an intense like body work treatment, for example, and you're saying yes to your pain, you're surrounding that pain or that blocked up place with unconditional love. And from that perspective, you're not going to be locking around it. You're not going to be holding on to it. And, you know, your inner voice isn't going to be resisting it leaving your body. Your inner voice is going to be saying yes to it leaving your body.
Yeah. Not in resistance. You're embracing it, like you're breathing into it versus resisting it. Yeah. How did you know, you've been an acupuncturist for many years, right?
Oh, yeah.
And a body worker. So what do you do? Like, did you just at some point realize that it was important that people experience and get in touch with their pleasure as they're receiving treatments? Like, is that what happened?
Well, so I've been an acupuncturist for about 3 years out of school, and I started studying Tantra and studying the ancient Indian, the lineage of where Tantra came from, because it just was fascinating to me, the chakra system, how energy moves in the body. And I've heard these terms before through taking yoga. I've been practicing yoga since I was like 15 or 16. So all these concepts I've heard of, but I've never really understood the inner workings of them. And through acupuncture, it teaches us as a practitioner, it teaches me about how energy moves in your body. But I felt like there was something more, and also something that my client can do for themselves outside of the treatment room. So the client comes in for treatment, I can give them a treatment with needles, and then they go home, and it's like you want to be self-sufficient with your healing practice. So learning how to affect your own energy with breath, with visualization, with yoga, with different muscular contractions and movements, learning how to direct and guide your energy actually puts you more in a position of control. So I wanted to learn how to weave the two together, how to use acupuncture and also allow my clients to be more self-sufficient. And I do a lot of client education to help them understand how they can heal themselves.
Yeah, that's what you guys want. You want to find practitioners like her, practitioners like me that help you develop interdependence. We don't want dependence. We want people to, you know, have the tools and the knowledge and the practices in place so they can care for themselves, right? There's nothing more valuable in today's world with the medical system the way it is. We need to be able to care for ourselves, and that's essential. So the practitioners I look to are the ones that are like give me direct knowledge and tools to quickly turn on myself and like really utilize.
So when you want to initiate change, you need to know where you're going, and you need to have a map to get there. You know, so the destination, the map, the directions to get there, and then you need fuel to get you going. And the fuel is some of these energetic practices. You know, the fuel is getting more energy alive in your body by doing breath work, by doing any kind of practice that actually boosts up your feeling of vitality so that you can make these changes, so you can follow through with your goals and actually begin to commit to yourself so that you can see that long-term change that you want. Because without the fuel, you have a dream and a hope, and you feel exhausted or you feel locked into your old way of doing things.
Would you say that pleasure is a road, like an inroad to energy? Because it needs energy to do all these things, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Would you say you found it to be a really effective means for gathering, creating energy?
Yeah, so for example, Napoleon Hill talks about, he has a book called Think and Grow Rich. And in the last chapter of that book, he talks about how having a high libido, essentially, having a high sex drive, is oftentimes people with a very charismatic personality also have a high libido, and they kind of go hand in hand. And having a lot of energy, like children have a lot of energy, they're just abundant with energy, overflowing with energy. That is also sexual energy, because it's creative life force vitality that actually is created in our sexual centers. And they say, you know, we get our energy from sleep, from eating food, and also our sexual organs actually make chi. They generate chi, and it can be used as like a battery for your life. So by learning how to harness your sexual energy and learning how to harness your energy of pleasure and actually use that in your body instead of just expelling it through sex or through sexual thoughts in your mind, or using it the way that, it's of our lesser nature to use it. We can use it and breathe it up and learn how to actually hold on to that and harness that as fuel for anything, for a transformation, for a creative project we're doing, for cooking dinner that night. It can be really fed into anything.
Right. Yeah, because like in sex, it would be less about goal-directed orgasm. It's about experiencing high levels of pleasure, right?
It's about generating
Circulating
electricity with each other. It's about reaching higher states. In traditional Chinese medicine, the Taoists have said that sexual energy is the proper cultivation and use of sexual energy is the most sophisticated form of preventative medicine known. And that's huge. That's saying that these people who developed Chinese medicine are acknowledging that our vital life force energy does come through sexuality, and by cultivating that and using that in the right way, you're actually helping your whole body stay healthy, stay higher immunity, free from disease, all those things.
Yeah, I've said a lot to them before, like the body's the only thing that heals the body, right? It's never going to be an herb or a technique or a machine. It's really ultimately the body. You set up the conditions and the body does the rest. We're self-regulating body, self-regulating mind, self-regulating spirit. So if that vital energy is flowing and being cultivated like you're talking about, then yeah, it's going to lead to healing,
So being in the pleasure state or experiencing pleasure increases all of these amazing hormones that are really healing in your body, such as oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, and all of these hormones flood your system, and it creates a really pleasurable state and a really healing state inside your body. And I know that you have a lot of knowledge on these hormones, and maybe you can tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would just say that the nervous system, for example, is split into two branches, sympathetic and parasympathetic. And in the sympathetic, it's fight, flight, or freeze. So it's our survival mechanism is wrapped up in this sympathetic response. And we ultimately, to be able to heal, we need to move from adrenaline and cortisol and all the survival hormones of the sympathetic into parasympathetic, which is really, oxytocin, and it's about pleasure and bonding and nurturance and healing and rest and digestion, all these really essential things that our body needs to rebalance itself. Like I said, it's a self-regulating system. So we just need to set up the conditions and the body will heal itself. And I think that when we breathe deeply in our belly, when we have good food and good people in our lives and right relationship, when we experience pleasure, then it moves you into the parasympathetic.
Right.
And from there, it's really easy to create new habits and to set yourself up for the opportunity for the body to heal itself and repair itself. Because a lot of people they're sleeping 6, 7, 8 hours a night, but if they're not going deep enough, they're not repairing.
Right.
There's a lot of people going through the motions of their lives, but aren't really present. If you're not present, how likely are you to actually be able to experience and circulate and share pleasure, not just sexually, but in general?
Right.
You need to be able to experience pleasure. It's our birthright. I think pleasure is, that's what we're here to experience. Our body is designed in all kinds of physical and non-physical ways to experience pleasure. We're really lucky.
Yeah. And joy too.
Yeah.
I mean, joy and pleasure are one and the same in a lot of ways. And I know there's been studies done actually of, people in nursing homes or elderly population, and as soon as they bring children into the nursing home, the elderly people are doing so much better, and that's because they experience joy again. And joy with people who are sick or ill, if they can experience joy, or they see their family members, it gives them something to heal for. It gives them that inner sense of well-being, and that's with like heart coherence, like what would you call it? Heart resonance. It's like when you feel good, when you feel joyful, when you feel pleasure on the inside, all of your cells are basically vibrating. They're buzzing at their highest frequency, so to speak. And it's such a healing thing you can do for your body. It's not unnecessary. It's not frivolous. And especially in our world today, there's so many stressors, so many things that can throw you off track. the fast pace. I live in Los Angeles. The fast pace of Los Angeles. We actually have a need to self-soothe. You know, and self-soothing, we do it through watching TV, or some people have vices like alcohol or smoking or something. That's the way that we soothe ourselves. It's necessary for us to soothe ourselves. So part of pleasure as medicine is the idea that we can actually do something healthy to soothe ourselves, and we learn how to kind of have more control over our mind state and our internal environment by knowing how to bring about this pleasurable healing in our body.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a breath away. Pleasure is just a breath away. It's like I talk about surface tension, right? We're holding a certain surface tension in our body, and you take a nice deep breath in, and then you let go and you let that surface tension drop. And that in and of itself, practice regularly, allows you to get in a receptive space, to be able to experience pleasure and circulate it and start to become aware of your sensations. Because if you don't feel your body and you don't feel the sensations of your body, how likely are you to not only experience pleasure, but then be able to utilize it and direct it specifically in ways to heal yourself, right? So in my last post, I said the question I ask my clients really consistently recently is, if your younger self knocked on the door right now and you had a chance to tell them something, what would it be? And consistently they say that they would be more present, care less about what other people think, and focus on what their heart says. Focus on what matters most to them in their heart. Consistently, right?
I see a lot of women who judge their bodies and who can't love their bodies. And it's causing them so much pain and grief and a feeling of low self-confidence. It's like they don't want to leave their house. I have clients it's that bad where they don't want to step outside. They don't want to be looked at. They don't want to see themselves in a mirror, and it makes me sad that you could live your life with that much kind of self-judgment or self-hatred even. And
they're often beautiful women, for example.
Beautiful women who don't even recognize their own beauty. And that's the thing with feeling beautiful inside, feeling not only beautiful, but that joy, that pleasure inside, and actually getting in touch with your right to feel this beautiful inside and to feel this amount of joy and pleasure inside your body. The rest of it stops mattering as much when you know that you can exude this glowing light from the inside out because you're vibrant, you're rich inside. It's that starts to, I've seen women begin to change the way they look at themselves and step into a whole new level of self-love because they actually see their bodies as life-giving, as like beautiful representations of the feminine, of beauty. And a lot of these pleasure practices, even just learning how to breathe slowly and see yourself less objectively and more about how you feel inside. If you didn't have eyes to see yourself and all you knew was how you felt inside, how beautiful would you feel? How vital do you feel? How full of life do you feel?
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, how you experience yourself from the inside out.
Right.
That's how you're going to develop presence and connection and pleasure and feel pleasure.
Yeah, because I know, for example, if I'm in a bad mood, if I'm feeling funky, if I'm, depressed or having a bad day or tired, I don't want to interact with anybody, and it might start getting flipped into negative thoughts about myself because I feel crappy, but if I do my practice, if I do my exercises, and I feel vibrant inside, I feel like I have a lot of energy, then it's like nothing could stop me. Yeah.
Yeah, the time when we least want to do it is the time when it's the most beneficial, whether it's a physical practice, a breathing practice, communication.
Yeah.
It's the time when it's hardest is when the most leverage and it's the most beneficial.
Yeah, so think about what you reach for when you're feeling low, when you're feeling like less than 100%. A lot of people reach for sweets. They reach for, their vices, like I was talking about before. Yeah. And using pleasure not as a vice, but as a practice, depending on how you use it, it can be either beneficial to your health or detrimental to your health, just like most things, So choosing to use pleasure with responsibility, with discipline, and using it in a way that's actually boosting your vitality, and it's not in a way that's leaking out your vital energy, that you're actually rewiring your brain and training your mind to go for something that's self-nurturing instead of something that's going to leave you with a sugar crash or some other withdrawal effect. If that makes sense. And it's giving you more personal empowerment because you realize how in control you are over your own mind, your body, and your energy. And that alone is really empowering.
And how many of our choices are really purely based on chemistry. You know, we're going for that dopamine hit. We're trying to satisfy, you know, whether it's food or gambling or sweets or, you know, some habitual thing that we do, a substance we use, or a way we communicate with someone. It's based in the chemistry.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, rather than, you know, for example, to evolve is going upstream sometimes. It's like your body, your biology is going one way. And if you really want to evolve and develop yourself, you got to go the other way, to go against the current. And really, and I think in the beginning with people's spiritual or physical practices, emotional practices, they tend to fall off or they can't stay consistent because it's an effort. And they like it to just be easy and fun and just feel great, which it can, but it takes time. It takes practice to get to a place where you can just really be in a state of pleasure or enjoyment, I think.
Yeah, and it becomes second nature the more you do it, you know, and that's the thing with the neural pathways. It's whatever your habituated response is like a super highway, right? It's just, it's the easiest thing to go to. There's a super highway sized pathway in your brain that as soon as you get depressed, you're used to reaching for sugar, for example. And that's just naturally what we do. You stop thinking about it because it becomes a reaction. Over time, it's going to feel like swimming upstream to evolve, to choose to do something different. Because at first, you're going to think sugar is what I want, and then you're going to have to train yourself. No, I'm going to go this way instead. I'm going to do my breathwork practice. I'm going to do stretching instead, because I know that also releases tension. And over time, sometimes you're going to want to give up. You're going to want to just be defeated and go for your old comfort. But if you stick with it over time, this new trained pattern will become your habituated response. And that's the key to really creating your own chemistry, to kind of creating your own pattern of your mind, so that when you're depressed, the first thing you think of is breath work. The first thing you think of is your practice. Sugar is such a distant glimmer that you don't even reach for it anymore.
Right.
Because you've created new go-tos, new systems.
Yeah.
So that's called neuroplasticity, and it's the ability to rewire your brain and the ability to choose how, you know, your brain is set up. We're not just functioning at the default of our brains, the way that they've been built by our childhood and the schooling we went through and the relationships we've had, all things that have helped construct our brains. We're actually choosing to take charge and form our brains. And pleasure, actually, the energy of pleasure drops you into a right brain state, which is more the parasympathetic, the rest and digest. And the energy of pleasure is a huge component of neuroplasticity. When you're in that right brain state, any kind of pleasure state, trance state, meditation, when you're not in your linear logical thinking mind, your brain is more open to take in new information. So you can learn things better if you're trying to remember something or memorize something, if you're trying to create a new pattern, if you have like your affirmation or something that you want to say to yourself. In that state, you're actually way more likely to be able to rewire your brain from that pleasure-induced state. And it's the feeling of being fluid, the feeling of not being rigid, not controlling. It's a feeling of being out of control, but pleasurably out of control. We're allowing this out of control, and it's that same out of control that is what allows your brain to be changed.
And what allows your body to experience pleasure too, right?
Yeah.
Letting go to the natural state.
Yeah. And from there, saying yes to it, saying yes to something like we were talking about earlier, saying yes to releasing your pain, saying yes to the healthy state of your body, not just no to a disease. You're saying yes to what you do want to feel. If you have pain, instead of trying to run away and avoid the pain, say yes to what you do want to feel, bring pleasure there, and then, be able to work from that level, nurturing yourself.
I like that. Yeah, it's almost like there's there's neuroplasticity, right? And your brain's plasticity and ability to be malleable and flexible and also branching out in different directions. But then pleasure would be almost like it's a biological way to do that as well, to increase the neural net of your body through pleasure in the same way, wouldn't you say?
It increases. I mean, the more pleasure you can hold, it's like this charge of electricity in your body, and you increase your nervous system's capacity to hold more energy. And a lot of us are walking around with chronic fatigue, feeling tired or depressed and all of that. And by boosting your nervous system, by strengthening its ability to hold more energy, you're actually becoming a more powerful human being. You can become a superhero.
It's true.
Like this guy.
Yeah. Our superpowers are really, like you're saying, they're based in the nervous system. The nervous system is the key, right? Whether it's enlightenment, experiencing pleasure or healing, or being open to new things in life, to being able to multitask, be efficient and effective in our lives, to coordinate and function on a high level is really based in the nervous system. The stress that we're holding on to is in the nervous system as well, and we don't often recognize how much stress we're holding on to until it's gone. So we start employing pleasure practice or breathing or a good diet, anything that's going to upgrade our biological and nervous system, and then all of a sudden we realize, oh wow, I've got a lot more choices, I've got a lot more space inside of me, there's less inflammation, there's less miscommunication happening. Therefore, I've got a higher neural capacity, and you start to access more potential in terms of what you can experience and what you can share with people, because you've coordinated a level of intelligence and connection in your nervous system.
Right. It's really important to know how to feel good, and from this place you can heal your whole body. And so many of us are trapped in what it's like to feel bad, or trapped in trying to avoid feeling bad. And instead of trying to avoid feeling bad, if we try to open to what feels good and allow what feels good, and it starts with self-love, just loving yourself enough to say yes to what brings you joy, and trusting that you having joy is actually feeding everybody around you, feeding your family, feeding everyone you come into contact with. It's your personal joy is like you're healing the world with that. So healing yourself is not selfish.
I love it. We were just talking about that last week.
There you go.
And the more people I meet, all kinds of health practitioners all the time, and more I'm consistently hearing people really getting that and sharing it. Because sometimes someone says it a certain way and it lands for you, and other times it doesn't. So the more we can share that and really help people see the importance of caring for themselves, and that's going to, move them out of self-sabotage and out of sabotaging other people, and really create, more capacity in the world and more quality, Because to me, it's really all about quality of life, quality of connection. True healing is going to come out of quality connection within yourself and quality with the people you're working with.
I have people tell me a lot that my presence is healing. Like, they say that I have a healing presence. And I'm sure you experience that too. And I think that's because both of us have cultivated our own personal joy and have cultivated our own personal practice so that we know how to feel good, because there's no way that I'm going to feel healing to somebody else if I don't feel good inside myself. And as a healer, that's number one for me.
So thank you so much for sitting in with us and tuning in for a bit. I appreciate you guys always. Hoping we add value and inspiration and education your way. Look forward to seeing you next time. All right, blessings.
So if you guys liked what you heard today and want to learn more, I have a website. It's www.miriamelise, that's MIRIAMELYSE.com. And you can also feel free to shoot me an email to ask me questions at miriamelisko@gmail.com.
We're going to do outtakes on this.
Cool. Can we?
Hi, it's Isaiah from the Inner Health Foundation. Seriously though. Let's pull it together here.
Okay. Can we press pause?
No.
Yeah, so, oh shit. Word.
Word.
I just said that.